Three, two, one. And we're live. Tá fáilte roimh a lig táid beo arís arás le droghada Irish Patriots. I've got Karen with me tonight. I'm delighted that Karen has joined us. Unfortunately, Bernie Smith is not able to join us. She's apologised for that, but she's hoping to reschedule until after Easter time. But
Okay.
as I say, Karen, I'm very appreciative, has come in at the very short notice there. But it's vital, actually. The topic of tonight's discussion is going to be on abortion, and it is vital that we get a woman's point of view on this. And Karen, you are very well placed to give that point of view. Obviously, the Irish Freedom Party's policy on abortion is that it is a pro-life party. That's clear.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we've had a lot of societal changes over the years, and but abortion, does that not take into account the rights of the unborn child? Surely it does. And is my mic picking up okay, Karen?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Just to start off, the people in the loony left, or the feminazis, as I call them, talk about abortion being female health care and all this. This is the buzzword they're using for it. Karen, just talk about, what is your take on the whole abortion issue? We haven't talked about it in detail yet. So as a member of the Irish Freedom Movement, how would you look on abortion and the clamour for it? And we're seeing in the north now they're doing things over the head of the people. What's your take on it, Karen?
Well, I mean, it's nearly 3 years ago since we voted on this, and obviously I'm against abortion. And I remember a few years ago when all the protests were going ahead in Dublin, and obviously the public meetings. I always felt uneasy about it, and I didn't like the amount of people who are going to these meetings, especially young people. Now I know back in 1983, when most of the young people weren't even born, it was be held onto the Eighth Amendment to protect the child. But Ireland was very different, and in less than 40 years we've changed full circle. And I think personally,
do you think the abortion debate's it's a bridge too far? It's too much change.
It's too much change, and okay. I mean, no one wants to have their child, sick, and obviously parents, when they're expecting a baby, the first thing is it's healthy and happy, and everything's fine. What does happen, like a child can be born with some defect, and and to kill, to abort a child on that basis,
well, that's terrible.
It's morally wrong, but I know it's very easy to say, you have a choice to kind of do something about it, protect yourself from, or the child from any, quality of life. But the quality of life can be enhanced. Things have changed a lot. Medicine has changed.
It's a terrible thing to be put. It's a terrible thing to be aborting a child because it may have a defect. Isn't that not just totally morally wrong? And I don't even think that they're going as far as to say it. I think they're talking about more the crisis pregnancies, which, I mean, the legislation caters for that anyway, in my estimation. Is that not more where they're coming from? I mean, I don't think they're talking about fatal, if it's fatal for the woman. But I thought legislation covered that anyway. You can maybe tell me more about the southern legislation on that.
Well, it shouldn't be used as a contraceptive, and the danger is it could be.
That's what it kind of is, yeah.
Now, I work in a hospital where we see a lot of children who are coming in, say Down syndrome, for example, but their prognosis for their life and their quality of life is actually very good. Now, they are prone to cardiac and they are prone to leukemia problems, but their prognosis in those illnesses are that more than 8%, to have a good quality of life, and their length of life is actually extended. So to say, my child has Down syndrome, they can get a test done beforehand, they want to abort the child, is, it's a weak argument in the sense that
I don't think that's an argument at all. I think that's a disgraceful argument that somebody would want to abort a child because of Down syndrome. That I don't think that argument stands up at all. I mean, it's totally immoral.
And I see it for myself that children have very great care, regarding any problems that they may have. So the quality of life is extended between medicine, health, education, and jobs. So they're not going to be sitting at home not having a life. And then obviously with other problems like cystic fibrosis and cerebral palsy. But again, they can still have a good life.
But
I do think.
I think the debate, the referendum debate, was completely rigged for a start. I mean, I don't know about you, what way you voted. I presume you voted against it, but the referendum, you had the media, you had the mainstream media, you had the government, and all the commentators were completely in the pro-abortion camp. And the way they even framed it, it was vote yes for abortion, i.e., yes is positive, and vote no is all negative. But the no was actually to keep the Constitution the way it was. So the even way they framed the question was rigged. You know, if they had said vote yes to maintain the Constitution, the Irish Constitution, which protects the rights of the unborn child and the rights of men and women, which Patriots fought for 100 years ago, that should have been what we should have been arguing for, to maintain the Irish Constitution. But they've dismantled the Irish Constitution. So it makes me wonder, and it was Sinn Féin that were on the forefront of this, so-called nationalists.
And
exactly? Yes. So what is that? How can an Irish national? What's the difference then between Ireland and Britain? There's no difference in Ireland and Britain in terms of its language, in terms of its abortion rights, in terms of its culture, in terms of anything, in terms of its religion. There's no religion left in Ireland thanks to people like Sinn Féin. They're the least Catholic party out there. So Ireland used to have a unique language, religion, human rights for the unborn, and now that's all gone. So I always beg the question: what exactly is it? What exactly is Sinn Féin's raison d'être? They're bringing in everything. It's just complete. Is it just Marxism that they're interested in? So anyway, I thought that the abortion debate was completely rigged, and the only county that voted to maintain the Constitution was Irish-speaking Donegal, which was interesting. I thought it was like the old traditional Ireland.
I think Leitrim might have been the same. I think
Donegal was the only one that voted no, as it were. You know, but I thought it was shameful. I was talking to somebody the other night from an English journalist who said, she was a woman, and she said it was an absolute shame that you had women. It was women dancing around at Dublin Castle when they voted this thing through. Something stuck in my craw with that, you know.
Yes, it shocked me the amount of young people that were really pushing for this, and I know they weren't around. But when you take when you look at Ireland in 1983 and look at Ireland now, even 3 years ago, it's moved forward technologically, and when you do that with a society, you take out something that's very basic, and that's the spirituality of the people. And then when you lose that, you lose their basic moral code, in a sense, that they don't really value life the way they would have done in the past. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why we got to where we are. As for the North, I mean, we were given a referendum, and unfortunately went the wrong way. But in the North, it was pushed on the people.
Yeah, see what's happening now. Yeah, you touched on the North there. What is happening in the North? Because Mary Lou and Michelle O'Neill were dancing around saying the North is next. Well, the North shouldn't be next, because the majority of people in the North, I think, would vote against it. This is the curious thing again. You've been up canvassing with me several times, and we've seen some. It's quite tribal, as you know, but in the North, you have the Catholic Church and the Orange Order are exactly in agreement on this thing about abortion. Now, that's something that we could be building on.
Yes, you know, I agree.
It was incredible. And now what they're doing, as you've quite rightly said, they are bringing in, and Sinn Féin are pushing this again, they're bringing in British laws over the heads of the Northern Irish people, if you like. We have an assembly. What's the point of having an assembly if it's going to be bypassed whenever it suits Sinn Féin? And it's ironic, again, that it's the unionists that are standing up for the abortion, for the unborn rights. And it's the so-called nationalist parties that want to bring in British rule over the heads of the people of the country.
Yeah, and just where you said that, the Irish Catholic had an article in the paper last week for the bishops calling out against it because it affects the peace process. Because while you're trying to keep the peace process going, that means, you know, keeping its evolution of control away from England. Yeah. If you have Westminster interfering in that with this kind of law, it affects the peace process. You know, and then obviously you have the unions who are, you know, pro-life against Sinn Féin who are pro-choice. You know, so you have that problem as well. In relation to figures, though, since you know, it came into law in March of last year, there's 664 abortions, and in Ireland in 2019, 6,666. That's a huge amount of abortions in a year. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
I
Go
mean,
from a country with nothing.
My fear is it's just going to become abortion on demand and another contraception, another alternative for contraception.
Yeah.
You know, the abortion laws were there for good reason, to protect the unborn. But my legal take on it is that all the rights and the so-called hard cases were protected under law. I mean, if you have abortion, if you have rape and incest, you're going to know who's done the crime, so you're going to be able to get a conviction there in law. So to force to have an abortion as well, two wrongs do not make it right. And a lot of the women who have had abortions in those situations regret it in years to come. It does not solve the problem of the rape or the incest. You know, you always, when you're watching I was watching a program last night about Jack Charlton and the Irish football team and how the progress there that they had, if you like. But they always tie that sort of thing in with the so-called societal progress that Ireland has had over the last 30 years, 40 years. In other words, they've got all the gay rights, but people always had gay rights in Ireland. Nobody was against people that were gay. And now you've got these very extreme abortion rights, if you like. Everybody says that's progress. But I mean,
it's not progress.
Yeah, it's not progress. Why would you say it's not progress? Karen, I agree with you, but it's not very much progress. I mean, if people were saying to women, forcing women to have abortions, you can imagine the outcry and the outrage. But now it's because a woman who you would think would be the least ones wanting to have abortions are the ones that are for it. It just seems quite strange. And whenever you see debates on it, was a debate last week in the BBC News, you get these angry women like Susan McKay, these angry liberal women who are so upset about the fact that they can't abort children and say it, and Sinn Féin say it's health care. What do you mean health care? Come on, what do you say to that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's healthcare. I mean, healthcare to me is looking after everybody. You know what I mean? Young, old,
it's nonsense to call it that. It's just
to solve the problem. It's to promote and maintain health. But when you're killing if you're aborting a child or killing a child in the womb, that's not healthcare. When to me, you're letting I mean, okay, nature looks after the body itself. There's something wrong with a child and a fetus in a woman's body. It naturally miscarries, and that's obviously very stressful. But like, obviously, there's something wrong. And also the other thing is as well the debate about when the baby is a fetus or fetus is a baby. As soon as as soon as conception happens, that baby is a soul. That baby is important from the get-go. So I think they have a kind of a rule saying, okay, it's a baby from that point upwards. But it's always a baby. It's a human being. You know, whether it's a few weeks or a few months. Yeah. I think that's important to remember.
You know, they're killing the most vulnerable entities in society. You know, it's life. I mean, again, we'll go back to what about do fetus lives matter? You know, rather than all lives matter. You know,
every life matters. Yeah,
exactly. And it's always the liberals that are the ones that would sort of be outraged about meat. Meat is murder and vegetarianism is murder. Well, surely an aborted fetus, is that not tantamount to murder? I mean, let's be honest. In the late 60s, it was a grave crime to carry out an abortion. So that's there for a good reason, you know. And I don't think it's a different debate. Homosexuality was illegal back then, but that's a different argument because that's consenting adults. With consent, but a fetus cannot consent to be destroyed.
His own death. Yeah.
I mean, what do you say, Karen? You get a lot of the libertarian viewpoint that would be followers of us who would use the debate around not wearing masks and not wanting to take a vaccine as my body, my choice. Now, they would say, well, if it's my body, if it's my choice to have an abortion, what would be your take to that?
Well, that's just being very selective, Cathal. You know, I mean, that message was pushed very, very hard 3 years ago during that campaign, and everyone felt, oh, if that's the case, you know, I would vote yes, it is my choice because I'm the one, and I'm the mother, or we're the mothers, or we're the women who can make that choice for ourselves. But now the government take that away. Sorry,
the father should have a choice on that as well. I think.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well. you're talking about fathers, mothers make that choice, and say, for instance, a young woman gets pregnant and she's in college or whatever, they tend to make the choice without the boyfriend or even the guy who they're dating, without their consent or even with their knowledge on that. And it's not really done between the two of them. It's the mother that makes that choice.
Yeah.
And the father's always pushed out of that. And there's no, and he may want that child, obviously, or even give him the chance to kind of discuss it. And that's another thing. That's another culture that's coming up in Ireland as well. An auntie is very much, against the father in the relationship in cultures. Even before they're born or the child after the child's born, in custody battles and so on. But relation to my body, my choice, that's flipped over now. We've no choice. With vaccines and that. And I don't want to delve into that argument too much, but it's like it suited them 3 years ago. But now it's flipped over to suit them again in another way, where it's been taken away. It's not your body, it's not your choice over the mask issue. Now, we're not going to be going into that tonight, but still, I think they're using that now to kind of go against us. It suited them 3 years
They use
ago.
it whenever it suits them. It's
Yeah,
the same with the
absolutely.
Northern. It's the same with the Northern Ireland thing with the abortion. They bypassed the assembly to bring abortion in, and they bypassed it to bring in this protocol. But they have the assembly there. It's just used whenever it suits them. It's either an assembly or it's not. I mean, devolution in the north is a devolved. Sorry, abortion is a devolved matter. Why is it not being debated in Northern Ireland? Such an emotive issue. It should be debated, and I don't think the support would be there in the community for it in the north at all.
Yeah, and the article did say that very, clearly. A lot of Northern Irish people do not want this, and yet it's pushed on them.
Yeah. I
don't
think
even.
that's why they're bringing it in over the heads, the Secretary of State, because I think they know it wouldn't get through. And it is quite, as I say, you got the Unionists and Nationalists, proper Catholic Church and Protestant Orange Order are actually in total agreement on this. This is what they're afraid of. You say they're afraid of it coming together there.
Yeah. The culture of death in England, which has been there for a very long time, and they have abortion for years, they're pushing that culture, which is frightening, onto another people, even though they're linked, politically. But to do that without any consent is wrong. And obviously, with the storm elections coming up next spring, I presume, we need people like ourselves to be standing for election and, challenging that and making sure we have enough of them. I don't know how many constituencies in the north, but, we've won if we can. Sorry?
18.
18. So, they want at least, every constituency should challenge that and maybe link, develop a relationship with the unionists.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, we have had discussions with some people in the north about that. There is some commonality there. It's not going to be easy under any circumstances. I mean,
no, it's not.
We could stand candidates. We're going to get a bumpy ride, I think, whatever way we go. But I mean, I don't think all is lost. I think we could make some inroads there. Because as I say, I'll say it again, there is some certain commonality. I mean, there's nobody for proper nationalists to vote for not anymore, because SDLP have sold out on it as well. So you're getting a situation where there was the young GAA captain, the female captain of the GAA females team, football team, has a Down syndrome child, and for that reason she votes DUP now. And you're getting Bernie, who was going to join us tonight. Bernie says she votes DUP because there's basically nobody to vote for. Because if you feel very strongly about this issue, they're the only party that are. Now, I'm not. It's that's the choice that people in the north are faced with. So if we were to stand, we would pick up that vote, and we may pick up some votes from some of the conservative unionists as well. But it would certainly be interesting to see.
Well, I mean, you're saying it's going to be a bumpy ride, but I think when you have such a very thorny issue like abortion, and as cause it's been pushed on them, it might bring out, the commonality, and that's that kind of, to sit down around the table and have a discussion and say, well, listen, we have that, that's that kind of, I want to say passion, but like, we do feel strong about, not having abortion in Northern Ireland. So we need kind of maybe, obviously we've done already. We spoke to people up in the north to say, we do agree that Northern Ireland shouldn't have abortion. Linking even in with the churches. I mean, I always get the impression that the church is very important up in the north. And obviously the stuff that's going on, down here, to link in with the bishops up in the north, the hierarchy up in the north as well, would be good. I don't know how we can go around do that, but if we link in with them, you have that extra support, that voice. So you have a three-way voice instead of just one voice. Because obviously they seem to speak out more. Because that's one thing that shocked me, 3 years ago. The hierarchy in the church down here were silent.
Yeah,
You're silent.
I don't know what the Archbishop down there said, but even the Pope eventually came out and said something about it, but he was very, very quiet. And maybe they're a bit more straight, they're a bit stronger in the north, I don't know. But even going back to this lockdown thing, I mean, the UK has done better than the EU, than the Soviet Union, European Union, I mean, even our lockdowns opened up now. We're back to playing golf this week, whereas you aren't going to get back to that for about another 3-4 weeks. And the travel thing was announced today. You can maybe travel in your county and meet one other person in 3 weeks. So
yeah.
And then Coveney was on the other night saying, I mean, people are actually saying, thank God for Brexit, because the UK has done far better on the whole vaccine rollout, And Coveney doesn't want to admit it. He's so wedded to his fanatical EU project that he won't admit that. I mean, even comedy shows are now saying, well done, Nigel Farage, well done, Brexit, we've got the vaccine before you have. And people are coming up from the south to get it in the north, So the narrative's changing back again. People down south like to put on their kind of pompous hat and slag us off in the north, But the narrative's changing back again, We've got a health service. We've got out of the EU. We're doing far better on things. Come on, join us. The water's lovely.
And now that you mentioned healthcare in the north, on the Brexit,
even without Brexit,
restrictions, okay. Healthcare in the south and in the north were kind of curbed because screenings weren't happening, and elective surgeries weren't happening either. But guess what was going on? The clinics were allowed to go ahead. The abortion clinics.
Oh yeah.
Which to me is like it's sending a wrong message.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Cancer, you don't get proper treatment and timely treatment because it's time sensitive. But yet, if you want an abortion, that's no problem. You can get it. I know it's time sensitive as well, but
the one thing is doctors can't turn around and say, "Look, we're not doing it." They didn't become doctors to perform abortions, But now, just going back to the abortion thing, Connor has commented, we need united action. I don't see any. I haven't heard a good argument for it yet. As I said, the law on the hard issues is covered legally. So the only other reason they wanted to have it is contraception, or if there's something like Down syndrome. And to me, that's just an absolute non-starter. There's no justification for that at all. I think that should be made. That should be criminalised. To abort a child because it's Down syndrome is disgraceful.
But what you could do, I suppose, you could get. I don't know if you have associations for. We have Down syndrome Ireland down here. I don't know if you have the equivalent up in the north. But you get groups like that to kind of get in to support. A campaign, build a campaign up in the north during the elections. And I do strongly think talking to the hierarchy in the church in Northern Ireland, both sides, Catholic and Protestant.
Well, we're opening up this weekend for services, so opportunity there to come up and looking forward to getting back. And some of the services are ticketed, but it's a great opportunity. And that's another thing that we're ahead of you on. You can't open up yet, so we're starting to do that. And you realise how important it is when it's gone.
Yeah. And something I found personally, I'm going back to, jumping into the church there every time I go downtown, just to kind of have time for myself as well. But I think it's time. Like, there's so much going on in this country, And there's so much time we're so embroiled in the politics to kind of step over for a minute, like 15 minutes, and just pray. And it's very important to pray because I think we've lost the spirituality in this country. The North hasn't really lost it that much. Anytime I've been up with you, I've seen that, but not down here. And you have priests who are fighting, but one priest stands out more than the rest, whereas the others are not targeted as much. Obviously, Father J Hughes in Cavan, then there's Father Sean Mulligan in Monaghan. And there's other ones that are not as vocal, but they are doing it behind closed doors. But the Gardaí aren't going after them. You know, it's a country now.
You put up. I think you put up a thing on Facebook with the Garda in arresting people in church. I mean,
only last weekend in England.
That's shameful, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, this is stuff that didn't even happen in the when the British were running things back in the 1800s. That didn't even happen back then. You were still allowed. They clamped down on things, but
they improvised. Like groups of fields and rocks, and they improvised. So they can't even do that.
And you had in the hard border where you would get fined £500 or €100 for crossing a border. I mean, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's very sad to see the guards in with notebooks taking names of people in churches. How far has the country gone here? And I'm sure the guards don't want to do that.
Sorry?
I'm sure the guards aren't wanting to do that.
They don't, and they have admitted it. I did hear footage where they're saying they admitted it. I don't want to be doing this, but just please move on. Now, that was different context. But I mean, last Sunday, Father J Hughes opened his mass as usual, and 3 patrol cars surrounded his area of his church, and 20 Gardaí were in the area, and nobody could get into the church, as far as I know. Now, I could be corrected, on that. Maybe somebody did, but why is he targeted so much? Because he simply will not bench them. He will not pay that fine. I mean, it's only a fine. It's only a few £100, and it's probably to prevent him or maybe put him off. It won't put him off. But he's the only priest really that's really standing up to them. And we need more priests. If every priest in every parish done that, imagine the change.
But see, they get fined for that, and then a huge funerals in the news today in the north. Nobody's getting fined or anything for that, and they broke all the COVID regulations going. So people are saying now anybody that's got fined should just ask for a refund of their fine because the lockdown's effectively over. Well, the Story funeral in the news today, the prosecution said that they're not going to prosecute anybody for it, and so basically everybody who's been fined should just say, "I want my money back." They got fined for maybe going to a funeral with those 6 people. And there was about 2,000 people at that funeral. Nobody's getting fined or anything. So.
Yeah. I've known people who've got arrested and they're fined about £100. I mean, £100 is nothing, and it's not really. It doesn't stop people. There is a big sea change. People are not really adhering to the regulations anymore, and obviously that'll keep on going, hopefully, and it is frustrating them because they don't want to see people moving around. They don't want to see people, going about their business. But at the end of the day, we have to. But I really do think when you have a society that moves so quickly in a technocratic way, technology, and you lose the spirit of the country, this is what happens. When it comes to secular, something is missing. It's like the soul has gone out of the country. And we had been Christian for so long. I'm not being over religious when I say that, because at the end of the day, you can be Christian without being a Catholic. You just be the way you live your life, how you conduct yourself.
What's your take amongst your friends and colleagues about abortion? You're more in tune down south. What's their general straw poll?
Well, they would be pro-choice. They would be pro-choice. Yeah. And even though they see what we see, and they probably wouldn't do it themselves, and they have children, but they would be thinking of the women who would need it, as far as they're concerned. That's the difference. I know that was the conversation that was going on 3 years ago.
But what about when the law already covers for those that need it?
Well, they're thinking of maybe incest and maybe
But it was covered for that. It was covered.
Well, they don't think so. I think they wanted the women to have the choice. And then maybe prevent them, because so many women were still going to England, you know,
So
and then to take.
abortion solves. I mean, what about the fact that if it was a rape or incest and you had a criminal charge brought against the person, is that not enough? So does it have to be abortion as well as that? You know.
No, yes, they would have thought that way, because I mean, at the end of the day, not all convictions of rape go through. And then if a woman did feel she was found pregnant, they would, you know, the choice of having that abortion if they wanted it, they wanted that as well. But it wasn't just that; they wanted the choice of women to have it no matter when they needed it. You know, they didn't want to take the choice away from the women, you know, even though they wouldn't use it themselves. Um, but they fell for that argument, unfortunately. You know, it's a divisive issue.
Baz is saying the Garda are now agents of social change rather than guardians of the peace. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They turned the whole corner.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-guard. I'm not anti-guard. I was a guard. I'm not anti-guardy, but I'm disappointed in them. But I'm going to say something now, and I think.
Please do.
I don't want to go off topic. But when you have the force of the state regarding the Gardaí, you know, when there are guardians of the peace, that's what in name only at the moment. But 4 years ago, they had the government running around in circles regarding their pay, and they need to do that again. They organised and they sat and they talked and they went through their associations. They need to do that again, because if they lost their trust 6 years ago, they will never get it back now, because it's aspects of our lives that are seeping through our private lives, our Christianity, our travel arrangements, everything, and they're coming into our lives at a level we've never seen before. And when I'm not talking about a criminal's life, like, you know, where they go in and they take drugs out of the house and they do searches, and you know, they take cars off.
You mean the intrusions? Yeah.
The intrusion of our lives. Now, I don't have that personal myself, but when you have, say, for instance,
you always have your stash well hidden
in your house or whatever. Sorry?
You have your stash well hidden. Joking.
I do. Don't
you know where to hide it. You know where to hide them all, Karen. Yeah. Being a guard. You know the hiding places, yeah. But I agree, yes. Yeah.
But I'm shocked at the intrusion of our lives to, you know, from walking in the park to movement around and the social aspect of our lives. Like, give you an example. Last week in Meath, a busybody neighbour rang the girls and a family who were having a party for a child of 5 years old because it was his birthday, and it was in the garden, and the police came up and broke up the party. Of a 5-year-old. Now, where does it end? And the girls need to turn around and say, hang on a second. We're saying no to this. You know, we're saying no to this. Carry on. Our core duties are prevention, investigation, you know, protect the state, protect the public from crime and, you know, accidents and so on.
Uphold the Constitution.
Yeah, uphold the Constitution and their oath from 2005. Yeah. And their duties are gone completely off the wall. They're being removed from the core duties. They're doing things that have nothing to do with police. It's not
dancing around like that, yeah.
And dancing around, and you know, basically going to places we can't go ourselves. I know that's an old argument now at this point, but it undermines their job. It undermines trust that you can never get back. And I'm really disappointed in them. I can only imagine maybe if a young Garda probably only came into a job maybe a few years ago, even last year. I was thinking, I came a guard for a reason. That's to serve the public. And now look what I'm doing. Now, if I had been still a reserve now, I would have walked away from it. I could not go down against the public like that. Standing there and telling them, you know, go home. You're beyond your 5K. You're in the wrong place. You're in the park. You're not wearing a mask, or you're on the bus and you're doing whatever. That's not policing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go back just to
the core goal. Sorry.
I'll go back just to the abortion thing as well. I agree with your point, yeah. But I mean, what a nationalist hero in Ireland is Bobby Sands, and one of his great quotes was, "The revenge of the Irish people will be the laughter of its children." So how does that sit? How does that sit with Irish children being aborted? You know, it's just completely incompatible. That was what his famous quote was, and that's not what Irish nationalism was about. Forced abortion from Britain and forced immigration, if you like, as well. And how can any nationalist want to proactively abort its own children? Abortion, abort, replace, abort, replace. That's basically it.
Yeah.
So I'll any comments on that one? I'll maybe leave that one as the final comment.
If he was alive today, I have to say he probably would know Ireland now.
No, they would turn in their graves. The Patriots 100 years ago would be spinning in their graves. Collins, Pearce, everybody, and the likes of Bobby Sands, they would just say that's not what they went on hunger strike for. That's not.
He's gone 40 years now.
Whether the struggle, whether you agree with it or not, that was not what it was about. It wasn't about. It was about Brits out. It wasn't about migration of people. It wasn't about an Ireland for everybody. It was about Ireland for the Irish.
Yeah. None of them had recognised Ireland anymore. It's totally changed. And in our lifetime.
I don't recognise Ireland in my lifetime. I don't recognise it. I don't recognise it.
And not only that, before I left work today, they were talking about euthanasia, and I work with people that, they're my friends and colleagues, but they do tend to kind of think that that's okay. Now, I always had mixed feelings about euthanasia, and, like obviously when people are terminally ill, they're in pain, and there's no quality of life. I'm just wondering, is it our right to take away our own life like that? Because when you look at people who are suicidal, they're doing it out of depression, and they can't see a way out. And then compare that to the person who's in pain physically from cancer or something, and they want to end their life, because they don't see a way out either, and they want to on their terms. I mean, euthanasia is a thorny issue, and there's some countries that are way ahead of us in that regard. But I was listening to conversation today, and I was thinking, Jesus, they think it's okay to do that. It's an option.
I was talking to somebody the other day who said he thought that there should be euthanasia of everybody at 70, and that should be it. That's an opinion put forward by somebody. In other words, people are living far too long, and just have everybody euthanized by 70. You finish work at 50, and you have 20 years, and that's it. That was a point of view that was put forward by a friend of mine. But
that's really bad. That's dreadful.
Not saying I agree with that at all. I'm just saying it was a mate of mine's opinion.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't agree with that myself. I'm just saying it was an opinion. It was a half jokey opinion, but
when you think about the amount of people who lived their 90s. When I was growing up as a child, I like members of my family lived till their 80s, and they were good, long length of life. And as time goes on, that will extend well into the hundreds, because any babies born now, the chances of them being born alive until they're well over 100 is very high.
They'll probably live till about 110, yeah.
So anyone living in their 80s and 90s is coming normal, and that's great. But to end life at 70, you're young. That's still young. Yeah. So it's to die at 70 be very young, actually.
Well,
life
expectancy is about 80.
Yeah.
Men, near enough, and 85, 90 for women. It used to be 68, 70.
Yeah.
But look,
just say you're gone at 70.
Yeah, I think you said 65 actually, but
that's nothing like. That's absolutely dreadful.
Well, we'd have another 30 years ourselves to go to get to 65. What are you laughing at? Right, Karen, look. Guramila mai agus Guramila mai agaf achan duna. Thanks to everybody else that called in tonight. Karen,
Any good comments? No, I can't see them.
well, Garda, just the one about social change. Can you not see them when I put them up there? No.
I'm on the phone. For some reason, my iPad won't work.
All right, right. Connor said there united action needed on the issue of abortion. Yeah, we should be trying to make some overtures to the unionists and to the Catholic
And
Church.
the church leaders.
Having some approach like that, I think could be a vote winner. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and church leaders as well. And
Definitely.
interest groups like, people who are, Down syndrome Ireland and, an equivalent up in the north, if you know what I mean, they will be pushing for life, pro-life stance.
Yeah.
I think when people, they want abortion, because the child might not have a poor way of life. Not necessarily, in some cases, not necessarily in Down syndrome children. It's not the case, and I've seen that for myself. And medicine has moved forward a lot for the children, surgeries and healthcare. So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sure. We'll wrap it up there.
Okay.
Karen, thanks again, and I'm sure we'll talk about this topic again. I would say to everybody, keep an eye on it as it goes through the British Parliament for what's happening in the north regarding this. They're trying to bring it in, as I say, over the heads of the people. So that was current news last week. So until the next time, good you hear there, Ella? Slán
Okay.
Slán Karen, Slán everybody.
Slán, right, you
J Cahill said everyone's a gift.